Yeah.
Gotta have the Coke in there too.
Yeah, absolutely. Liquid Death.
Liquid Death.
That's good tea. I was going to do my HP tuner video first, but I had this special guy fly in today, and he used to, his name is Erik, and he used to be a Hydramatic intern at GM a long time ago when the 4L80 and such was being made.
That was my first job out of college, yeah.
Yeah.
First job in college.
He's a really smart guy. And
that's debatable.
He helps he helps us here understand what we're doing, and you know, very often he makes a lot of the stuff that we prototype and everything else. And we're going to show you just a couple little things today and get his thoughts on a lot of the stuff that he helped create a long time ago. And Erik, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself otherwise, other than you were a transmission specialist for many years?
Yeah, started out, that was my first job in college. I did an internship with the Hydramatic in 1990, 1991, worked on the 4L80 as an intern, running around for the engineers, doing testing and such. Then after college, moved on to work for Saginaw division, which was GM's gear and axle and steering gear division in Saginaw, Michigan, also in Detroit. Had a lot of experience with shafts, heat treating, gear hobbing, screw machines, punch presses, you know, of stuff of the heavy manufacturing nature. And came out west a little while ago. I didn't like working for GM because there wasn't enough to do. Came out west and basically been in Nevada ever since. Been dealing with Performabuilt for how many years now?
Probably 4, 5.
Yeah, at least I would say 4 or 5 years.
I'd say closer to 4.
And Ryan and I go back and forth. We make a lot of prototypes. He'll call me with a question and I'll try to make something for him. And that's kind of how we've been getting along until recently. I decided that we had never met face to face, and I decided to come out and do a little whirlwind tour. So here I am.
Yeah, and we just cooked a delicious rack of ribs, and we got some cool new stuff in the works that I'm not going to talk about today, but it might go in our unit someday if it works out. There's a lot of stuff that, as you all know, doesn't work out sometimes, or is just not cost effective to make, or et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to kick things off today by showing you, you know, just a little thing we made, you know, what we're kind of capable of, and explain the general principle behind it. You know, this is one of our, I wouldn't say failed, but impractical
prototypes.
You can put that closer if you want. This is a prototype. It is a super duper servo, or at least that's the only name we thought of, if it'll stay together. This is a very, very large servo.
Fourth apply servo, yeah.
And it's for 4th gear. Basically, it's compromised. And I'm going to let you explain your brainchild, honestly, because I'm not near as good at it as you.
What we were thinking of is we try to use common GM parts whenever we can. So what we did was we took the stock intermediate or 1-2 apply PTFE ring and use that to set the bore diameter for the 4th apply piston. As you can see, the apply piston is much, much larger. Therefore, you have more holding power in 4th gear. The advantage is that you can keep the same line pressure, and then you have more holding power, so you don't have to bump the line pressure up to compensate for a smaller piston. You can achieve the same amount of holding power doing it either way, but the force that this piston would apply on the servo pin goes by the square of the diameter. It's not a linear relationship, whereas increasing the line pressure is a linear relationship. So this piston, I calculated it some time ago, but it might have twice the area of that one. It might not look like it, but I could figure it out real quick. Therefore, at the same amount of pressure, you would have almost twice the force on the pin.
And for the guys at home, you know they don't look, you know, too awful extravagant, but when you spread this out,
yeah,
that is where your area comes in. And that's why it's like that. And it's kind of a, you know,
it was a first go.
So I don't know where the snap ring went, but it's a challenge.
So we're on the bench over there. We took it apart.
It's a very big challenge to get this thing in there. And by no means, I don't think 4th gear needs this, but it was super fun to make. Well, you made it, but it was super fun to test on the dyno. I was a little scared.
It worked, but it's you're constrained by, like what Ryan was saying, is the height. You have to be able to get the snap ring into the case. You need the travel for the piston, and then you're limited by you need a sealing area for the O-ring, and then you need a cover. I can take the O-ring out so it'll go in easier.
Yeah, the O-ring is off.
The O-ring gets in the way, so I'll take the O-ring out, and then you can put the cover on, and then the snap ring would go in the groove. And that's actually a very, very beefy snap ring. Because of the force involved, I didn't want the end to come off. I didn't want this to come off. It still leaks a little bit because the O-ring wasn't exactly sized perfectly, but I think when I was cutting it, the bore was a little big. So, and the O-ring cross section is a little small. I could have gone, if I make another one, I'll go up the size in the O-ring, but that'll make the cover harder to put on and remove.
Yeah, and so I don't think the leak was all you. I think we took it apart just to see, and I think we clipped it a little bit.
You cut the O-ring.
Yeah, so part of that's our fault.
That might have been the source of the leak, but basically the size constraint was you have a stock servo around here somewhere?
Bone stock? I have a
bone stocker. Oh, there's a couple. But this seal is the same as the 1.2 apply piston, and that's what determined the diameter for this. So if you look at this guy here.
That's Corvette, and this is stock.
Same size. Same size as the case and the hole in the case. So that was our idea anyway. More surface area equals more apply pressure for a given oil apply pressure.
And that was just one of the cool things we're cooking up. Honestly, sitting around the shop as a visit, there's so many more, but none of which we're going to talk about today because they're still in development. But this thing, it's cool. I mean, it was just a fun idea to make, and that's what we do here, and experiment with the different areas and different things you can do, even if it doesn't always work or isn't practical. But overall, we're looking at some things for the drum. We're looking at some things for the center gearing. How do you feel about the stock drum as it is? I mean,
I, like you, I build transmissions too for people in my community, and I know a lot of guys come back to me and they trust me, kind of like you. I've used that behind GM crate motors that were like some of the LS motors that are in the, GM advertises them in the 500-600 horsepower range, and I've used the stock drum and I haven't had any issues.
Yeah, and one of the, it's really about how you work the fluid and stuff. Like just, this was a great example in the beginning. You can put this in and it's huge, but it isn't gonna do the work for you or hit any harder. It's just gonna hold more.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hitting it harder really comes from things you're doing here at the brain, the valve body, the plate, volume, pressure, things like that. But I think we put a lot of focus on holding power.
Yes.
With what we build, because all the other stuff you can adjust.
I think pretty much it's common knowledge that in the drum, the weak link is the spline area where the input shaft interfaces.
Yep.
You start approaching, I would say, like the 600 horsepower range. Would you say?
I'd get worried. They're 6.7 based on 36 to 4,000 pounds of weight.
Yeah, if you're going to put it to the ground, the power comes in the input shaft. It has to go through those splines. This drum obviously is aluminum, and the splines can grow. The input shaft can walk around the splines, therefore it cracks. So that's a weak link, I think, in the input shaft. There are ways to compensate for it, which there's a plurality of patches out there on the internet, I'm sure.
Well, I got a question for you too. Steel and aluminum, steel shaft, aluminum drum. How, since you have a little more experience than me, how's the expansion rate on that too? Is that a factor too much?
It can be. I mean, they probably want a higher press with the aluminum because it does expand at a different rate than the steel does. Same thing when you have like aluminum cylinder heads on an iron block.
Yeah.
It's softer, it's more pliable. It's easier to form and machine than steel is. But it's not as forgiving.
Yeah,
it's not as tough. So it does expand differently. I don't know the expansion coefficient off the top of my head, but I could easily figure it out. So at temperature, the diameter is going to grow, like what Ryan was saying, and the steel is going to also grow inside. But if they don't grow at the same rate, or if they don't grow the same amount,
Yes.
then you have a press fit. You could have a leak, or you could have a loose fit spline. There's classes of spline fits that you can read about that determine the diameters you would need before or after, like if you want to press two things together. And I'm sure GM did their homework when they made this originally.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's one of those things where it came about, and it's basically a proven design for what it was made for. And when you try to stretch the limits of something, and you're going to run into problems. So
you're going to find out. We call it the FAFO award. One of the big questions I guess I got for you too, I mean, I have my preferences. How do you feel about clutches in general? Kinds? You have a favorite? You have a preference for certain applications?
No, I tend to use the same kinds. I like the high energy frictions myself. Even when I build a 700, I'll get the 4L60E or 65 kits.
Yeah.
And typically a 6-element, 3/4 clutch for what I do. I always set the clutches up at the low end, especially the 3/4. It goes to the low end of the spec. I like to see like no more than like 40, which is at the very bottom of the GM spec. But what?
I hammer that home.
Yeah, it's a lot of guys don't. I mean, I have all the selectable apply plates and the rings for a 3/4 and the forward. You can't set the overrun, but I have all the plates. And whenever I build one of these, I always go more to the low side on the 3/4. The forward, I like to see somewhere in the range, as long as I can hit it, because it's on all the time, so it doesn't really matter. But the 3/4 is the weak link, I feel, in the 4L60 or 700 or 4L60E, 4L65, et cetera, because you got two things going on in the tranny, I think, because it's not like a 400 where you apply clutch and apply clutch and apply clutch. In the 4L60, when you go from second to third, what do you have to do? Turn the band off. So you turn the clutch on too soon and the band's holding, right? And if you turn it off too late, they're competing against one another. So you got to time it. And that's what the accumulator is on the back of the servo.
This spring thing behind here, this plate, the popular Transgo mod where guys like to do the slots.
Yeah, I never do that.
Yeah, no, that's dumb. Stop doing that. But it doesn't really do anything. It won't help or hurt you. It's just a waste of time.
Yep.
But accumulators are important, and that's another reason I don't care for Transgo personally, just because they have you block the 1-2 accumulator pretty often. Me personally, I don't like to block accumulators.
I use a stiff spring in mine.
Yeah. A little stiffer spring, a little adjustment, sure.
You can, that brings us to this. If you want, this is the accumulator oil valve that controls among other things, it controls the oil pressure inside the accumulators to the 1-2, the 3/4, and if I'm not mistaken, the AFL circuit also.
AFL is huge, yeah.
So this guy, in a 4L60E, not in the 700R4, but in the 4L60E, the pressure and the spring opposed the shift, if I remember right.
Yeah.
They flipped about 1993. They went from the spring to the center to the spring to the outside in the accumulator. And this guy, I see a lot of these are stuck. I see a lot of these that, isn't there one down here? Right here.
I had one, yeah.
This one's stuck. If this valve is stuck in the closed position, you're going to get soft shifts. Your train's going to burn up. Here's a good example of a stuck one. It should move freely like this one does. You
guys can't really see the hand strength I got going on, but it's quite a bit with my screwdriver here. This valve is completely fucked now, ruined.
It was that way before you got it.
And it's a little scratchy.
It should slide in and out
pretty easily
with your fingers.
Yeah, not click into place.
Yeah, that valve, that's an important one. And a lot of guys overlook that. I don't know how many rebuilds I've seen where they come back and that valve is stuck, or it has the stock spring behind it.
Yeah, and I don't think any aftermarket companies, even a lot of local builders anymore, use the stock springs very much. I know we have a custom spring right here that we've spec'd out, mostly Evan over there in the office doing tunes today. That's his job today, but he's very good at measuring. So a little custom spring, but like he said, that's a valve most people look over, and then they focus on the 1-2 accumulator valve, completely block it, and then they have some weird fucked up timing and shit going on.
And the 1-2 accumulator, it's an important part of the tranny. The 3/4 can be blocked.
Yeah,
that happens a lot. But The 2.3 accumulator is in the case, and the GM put oil to the back of the servo to push the band off, and at the same time apply the 3/4 clutch. That one you don't want to play too much with, but
No.
it's there for a purpose because of the timing.
And
so
a big part anymore is timing's a big thing where I don't think a lot of these shift kits really address, but it does take a little bit of know-how as well. And clearances are a part of the timing,
Yeah.
you know, like all these things.
Not only like measuring the band clearance and the clutch, the apply clutch clearances, the low reverse clutch. I mean, you can get different plates for it also.
Yeah.
Or wait a minute, depending on the year, I think the pistons change.
The pistons change.
Yeah, the pistons change, and they have to go with the center support.
Or yeah, the center supports change too. The depths.
Yep.
I have some old 350 and 700 center supports that are thick
Really
as hell, and those are the 4060E ones are all about the same.
Yeah, you got to keep these as a pair. That's what I should have said. You can't mix and match the pistons. You got to look at the casting number on the bottom to know which one you're dealing with.
Especially now after, you know, these things have been out 30 years, and how many times do you think the average 60 has been rebuilt? You know what I mean?
The one I just pulled for my kid's C20, no, excuse me, a C10. It had never been rebuilt. It was
really?
It was a 96. Yep. And I searched for it, and I was like, I went to the junkyard and I found one, and I was like, oh my god, it's never been rebuilt. It had the white sticker on the bell housing and everything.
Wow.
It was about this thick with oil, but
yeah.
I mean,
hey, untouched,
untouched. I like the ones that are untouched.
I think probably I'd say 1 out of 3 cores we get has been touched. You know, at least once. Yeah, and mostly what I find is in the valve body here. A lot of people. We were talking about this earlier, and this is great for everyone at home. We were talking about the PWM circuit here and how most modifications nowadays, if the core has been touched, it's a transgo valve, it's a Sonax valve, things like that. And nowadays, a lot of the problem isn't the pump TCC valve or the solenoid itself. A lot of it's this guy. I'm seeing it more and more with the valve just being bored out, fluids blowing by.
That's an early one also.
Yep. Yeah. And then there's, you know, what, 3, 4 different kinds?
I think 4.
4 different kinds of valves.
They call that the non-ported, I believe.
Okay.
And then the ported one has a bigger hole here, and that's the one that takes the different spacer plate.
Yes.
With the different valve body gaskets.
I wonder if I have
one up.
Those. Yeah. I'm not sure if I have a new one. Here's one of the valves. This is your newer type. Well, there goes that.
You lost the chip.
Oh, and there's a modification. Cool. Okay, we just found one.
We just found one.
Okay,
yeah.
So a big common thing people do is they'll take. I pulled this out. Like, this valve body is from a core. I'm building it for a customer, literally, currently.
Those aren't supposed to be in there.
These 2 check balls are not supposed to be in there. But what we found just now, a lot of people like to put the check balls, 2 extras in these cups.
To lengthen the spring, which is, where'd the spring go?
We dropped that on the floor.
Shit.
Well, the spring is gone, but I'll find it later. They put the... Yeah, that's gone. And they put the spring... We'll just use this. Oh, you got one? I just need the spring. And then they put the spring...
To force the valve open.
To force the valve open. The isolator valve... I can't hold that together. The isolator valve, which is this guy, is forced to the back. This guy is forced up front. And it turns PWM, pulse width modulation, more or less into an on-off.
Turns it off.
It's locked down. And fluid just flows there. You know, no pulsing, no comfort, no worn out bore. But in my opinion, I don't think the transgo valves are really doing it anymore. Some aren't exact. Sonax has a good kit, but I think it still enables the pulse.
I believe so.
It doesn't restrict it as much.
Yeah, I'm with you. I usually, these older valve bodies, I'll check the bores, and then I usually, some of the early ones, I think before that design, when it had just a single.
Yes. Yeah.
You can get a spring for the one that just forces it open.
Yeah. One of the things we do, one of the quicker things is you just take the isolator valve. Normally it sits cup side out. we just flip it around.
Oh, that's, yeah, holds it open.
And it's a perfect lock on the PWM if anybody wants to do a very simple freeway at home. But yeah, that trick's been around forever. You know, one of the other things too that I was telling Erik about is the thing I'm seeing more and more with these abuse valves. I was just telling him how we had one on our dyno, and in D3, when you're in third gear, is what the unit was in. These two valves right here, back to back, 2-3 downshift, and then you have a reverse valve here. And it's only separated by a little aluminum plug, and it's kind of garbage with a roll pin. You know, the valve stroke, it moves that plug back and forth, and it sands it down like any other valve over time.
Especially if you don't change your oil.
Yep, big time. And in D3 in particular, we were turning up the pressure, you know, to test for 220-ish PSI at watt, and reverse oil starts leaking into the third gear circuit and stops the transmission instantly on the dyno like a trans brake. So if you guys are burning up third gear, that's a big one to check because it's probably leaking at this point. The only thing I do like about Transgo, other than their plate, they make a nice little steel plug that you can just substitute in there, and it usually fixes the problem. But yeah, that
you also got to keep in mind that this stuff's already like 20 plus years old, and a lot of the cores that I see, I mean, I personally have 4 cars with 4L60Es in them, and a lot of those are coming up on, you know, 300,000 miles. So
just like me,
that valve has been cycled an awful lot of times, and like Ryan said, it's an aluminum valve body, and if you don't change your oil enough, the fluid will get more abrasive. It loses its viscosity, and it will wear the bores out.
And that's also why you guys went PTFE later on, more or less, for weight and just longevity of the bore. The old steel valves, 1990, 96 it was over, 95, 94, and 93. Big steel valve years. And even though those valve bodies and stuff don't have a lot of miles, there's a reason. Those valves easily weigh twice as much as a PTFE valve. The pilot valve, I think, has always been PTFE for some reason.
Yeah, these are anodized. They hard anodize these.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can tell when you put it on the lathe and it squeaks a little bit.
Yeah, and then once you break through that coating, it's off to the races. But yeah, back to your original question about the clutches, because
oh yeah, let's talk about that. I got a little lost.
Yeah, clutch clearance. I tend to like the high energy frictions. I substitute, even when I build a 700 or a 4L60. I get the 4L60E friction and steel kits. Yeah, and I strictly use 4L60E guts in 700s.
Yep.
Not all the hard parts, but like the input, the sprag. You know, I convert them all over to the bearing type sunshell. They use a lot of the 4L60, like the reaction carriers in 4L60E and like 4L60s or 700R4s, because they're a lot more durable, especially the later model stuff. Little things that GM changed that they didn't know about in 1982 when they first came out with this unit.
I thought I had a 1982 700 sprag. I wanted to show how different that was.
God, yeah, just look at it wrong. And what about the input shaft?
Yeah, that too. Yeah. Those I have in there, but
26 spline garbage.
Old 700 input shafts and 700 R4 sprags, not good. Just get an updated one. They're like in a weird format. The forward plate's different.
It's a three stack up on the 3/4 apply plate,
and the forward apply plate or retaining plate has like those. It keeps the sprag in. It's got those 4 little tabbies on it. Yeah.
And don't forget about the thrust washer.
Yep,
the big thrust washer on the back. They got rid of that. But
we don't see none of that. Mostly here, it goes right in the trash so quick.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But as far as the 60, so much of this shit's so interchangeable. You know, like the low roller. This is one of the strongest. You know, this thing don't break. I've yet to see too many, unless you're doing something stupid.
Neutral drop.
That neutral drop break. This.
Yeah, don't neutral drop a tranny. And when you're backing up, don't throw it in drive while you're still going backwards, because that's what pounds the lugs in the case. These lugs here that interface in the case, this thing's freewheeling. When you put it in drive, it tries to grab, right? Pounds the lugs out of the case. That's a no-no.
Yeah. And we still use, like, there's things you can help if you are doing beat up shit like that. Like, there's a case saver. This is going to help, but only to a certain degree. It'll only stop that from so much, and it's still going to beat itself down in a different tab.
Yep. I like the 5-element 4L65.
How do you feel about cast versus powdered on those? You know, I think it's good. They spread the load better, but I know they're weaker.
I don't. Yeah, I haven't, like, unlike you've approached some new levels with the 4L60 performance, 4L68 performance.
These is what we're using behind the big power too. Just
the 5-element ones. Is this a GM one or is it aftermarket?
No, that's a real GM one.
Yeah, those are way better. I've used these. I put these behind a couple 6 liters, and I haven't had any issues. But I don't think that the newer offshore ones are as good as the GM ones.
We found on the offshore ones, it's not really the metal; it's just the bushing tabs. They're soft or something. They start coming out and spinning, and then they fold in to the gear.
Yeah, and then it's off to the races.
Then it's over. Yeah.
And you can't get these anymore, I don't think, right? Not from Chevy.
I can.
You can.
Yeah.
You put them on a locator, because I checked the numbers. They were like, that's what it was. I think I checked and they were like astronomical, and I'm like, I'm not buying that.
They are expensive, but they are worth it in my opinion. They're just, you can tell. I don't know if anybody's been around automotive a good time. When you hold something in your hand, you can just feel the quality of it, and compared to overseas, there's no substitute.
Yeah, these are, I've only used these a few times. I haven't had the reason to go to a 5-element other than my own personal one. I built a 6-liter for a truck, and I had a 4L60, and I upgraded to 4L65, and I bought this stuff. This was like in 2006-7 when this stuff was still being made, and you could buy the whole kit from GM. I think it was under $100.
Hear that, guys?
Yeah, this one, the reaction carrier, and the input carrier also. The whole, it was a service number, if I remember right, and it came with everything. It came with
it should be the rear ring gear. Like,
it was in a big box. It was a complete assembly. I don't remember that, and it's discontinued now. But I don't know if it came with this guy or not. But this is the later model one. This machine, I prefer these also.
What would be the benefit of that? Is it just for thrust, just like the 5 pinions, you know, or is it?
You mean the 5 pinions here?
Yeah, I'm talking about the ring gear. I mean, I like them just for aesthetic, and it just feels better to me. But, like, you know, why did they change this? Do you know?
I could find out, but if it were me, I mean, you have another one? Yeah, right here.
Right there.
You can see that there's less. If you look at that's the wreck the place.
Yeah.
If you look at the inside, you can see there's less features. My guess, if I'd have to cut one of these in half to, section it down the middle, but I would assume that this one is stronger because there's less steps in it. I would assume there's a thin spot.
Yeah, I can see
right here,
where that pocket is.
Yeah, right where the pocket, or where the bearing goes. Bearing goes in there like that. This has the same type of pocket, but they eliminated this step, and basically they came right off of that diameter, and it looks like they tapered right down to here on this one. So same thing on the back. Looks like there's more meat there. It might be simpler to make. That might be why, because it's cheaper.
Yeah,
might be a little stronger. Go ahead.
GM did a lot of cost effective versus what worked. Like, we'll just be honest about that. Like, just because something was better, they might not have been possible for them to do just because it costed 5 cents more over millions of units.
You got to think about, you had $1 to a unit like this, and you're making 200,000-300,000 of them a year.
Yeah, that's a big chunk.
That's a big chunk of change. And when I was at Saginaw, if you had an idea to save money, you could put in a suggestion box, and if it was a big enough one, you got a percentage of the savings.
That's not
so
bad.
If someone came up with a clip that combined 2 into 1, which my boss happened to do at the time, you got a nice little healthy bonus.
That's not bad. Yeah.
They were always, it was a fun place to work, but there wasn't enough to do there.
Yeah. And if you had a really good idea and it gets shot down, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So even the best ideas weren't practical. It wasn't that GM made a garbage or a shitty transmission. The 4L60 never was a bad transmission. It's just a lot of it was cost versus the performance at the time, which...
Yeah, you got to remember, in 1982, when these came out, what was a 350? How much horsepower was a 350 or a 305 maybe?
100.
110 horsepower maybe? how much torque? 250 maybe foot-pounds?
What tires do we have?
Yeah,
17?
what was it going in? Some, 82 C10?
I remember in the 90s, when you had 18-inch wheels, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was very fresh. Now it's 20s. We got 22s. We got 28-inch drag radials, 29s.
Well, like similar when I was drag racing in the 80s, if you had a street car that ran like in 11s, that was ungodly fast.
Yeah.
And now it's like, ho hum, I don't have 1,000 horsepower. We did that on probably like 500 horsepower and like 600 foot-pounds maybe.
Yeah.
Street car weighing 3,000 pounds, and I hate to say it, well, I actually like it, but Chevy always seemed to have more than their fair share in the staging lanes.
Yeah.
It was just the way it was. I mean, it worked, and this was like when I was doing that. This transmission was like seriously frowned upon because it wouldn't hold the power. But if you look at like an 82 unit and compare it like to this 4L60E right here, it's like night and day. The bearing here, for one thing, that's a big thing that I like to do, like on all my trannies. I always change the sun shell over to the bearing type. I dump the bushing. I don't want to go into that, but like the bushing in the sun gear like that, there's a bunch of little upgrades you can do that are very beneficial to this thing.
And what he's really talking about going into that is there's different points in the transmission that are purely bump points, which don't apply force against the rear. And then there's other things that do ride.
There's one.
Yeah, so this is a bump point. You guys, the back of the pump, which we're not going to pick up, but if you guys don't know what back of the pump looks like, Google it. The back of the pump, there's a bearing that you can buy on the internet that you have to get machined into this reverse input drum here. That's completely useless. It's just snake oil. How many, this is what normally goes there, okay, pump washer. How many pump washers have you seen destroyed minus an overheating problem? None. Zero. Because there is no force. That bearing is useless that goes there. It's a whole lot of extra work for nothing.
There's no load applied there. Like you look at this gear, the splines these are tapered splines, right? They're not straight cut like this. They're cut at an angle. So when this gear turns, it turns like this, right? So when it turns, it's being pulled in.
Mm-hmm.
So it pushes against the roller bearing on the bottom. When it does that, I mean, the bearing's taking the load on this face. When this is running on this reverse input drum, it's on the back of the pump. There's nothing forcing this drum to the front. Nothing. It has a clutch in it that applies input power to the sun shell. That's all it does. So.
But this is more of a load point, in a whole different section of the transmission. There is a little bit of force here.
Yeah.
And that mostly, I think, comes from just the front planet.
Yeah, you get the input shaft. I mean, it can't go.
It can't go up.
It can't go up, so it has to go down. And if you on the other hand, like Ryan just said, that thrust washer, this plastic thrust washer, I mean, I've never seen one. I was a GM tech in the 90s, mid 80s to mid 90s. I was a GM tech. Never saw one of these fail. But on the other hand, how many of the bushings have you seen on the bottom of that fail?
Yeah.
How many thrust washers have you seen torn up?
I haven't got any.
Over there?
I did.
To your left.
Oh, yeah. This is a 4L81, but it's the same thing.
No, that's show and tell.
Yeah, same thing.
So this guy on the older ones sits like that.
Yeah.
But how many of these have you seen fail? Personally, about half. So.
Plus, on something like this too, any debris, any shit, this one's starting to get tore up, metal to metal.
Yeah, that is a high load point. That's something I never use these anymore. Like you can see the bushing started to wear there.
Yeah, and they never really cut these all the way. No. They always left that hang.
I think they ground that. Yeah, I don't know, to there.
Yeah, there's always that little lip there, and sometimes it really gets in the way. But yeah, rollerizing
where it needs it is advantageous.
Rollerizing is different. Now, like things like the 4L80, I don't want that hissing the entire time. But the 4L80, there's a lot of heavy. This is a much lighter transmission. The 4L80 has different load points, and a lot of it is really heavy. It's got the same deal. We have a washer where the sun gear area is that doesn't see any force.
Sorry, a lot of those they'll give you the brass ones, and the 4L80s. were copper brass, but some of the 400 ones were plastic, and they're just captured in there to keep that drum centered. There's really no load there.
Usually we would have these. This is between the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so these ones you guys have seen, I know you have. They're 2 or 4 tab. Fortunately, weirdly, I have 4 tabs, which isn't very common in my core load. I believe this is older, but there's no load there. But on the 80s rear end, the output carrier, there is a shitload of friction and load. So a rollerizing kit in the very back between the case and the output shaft or output carrier it would be beneficial. So different scenarios for different things, and all this should be considered. And well, that's what you mostly do every day, especially when we're thinking of a new part.
Yeah, Ryan's right. Not only is a 4L60 lighter duty, it's also lighter, and you got to consider that when you're using one. It's consider what it was made to be used for.
Yeah, so like I say, blow it up. Sure, go ahead and try. Like I build a tough unit, but blowing it up doesn't mean, you know, actually trying to neutral drop over and over or catch wheel speed all of a sudden, you know, stupid shit like that. You got to pick a purpose for your vehicle, and you got to kind of stick to that purpose. You know, there's a lot of things with the 80 you can do that the 60 can't do.
Yeah.
Just because of bigger, heavier components. But there's a lot of things the 80 can't do, especially in regards to RPMs, that the 60 can do because of simply what it's made out of.
Yeah, a lot less rotating mass. So 4L80, I think, consumes what, twice the horsepower that a 60 does?
Easily.
Probably over. Because when was the last time any of you guys out there tried to rotate input shaft on a 4L80 versus rotating input shaft on a 4L60 by hand?
Yeah, or turning like, you know, we're turning roughly 9,000 RPMs with these. On an 80, that's not really a good idea without spending a bunch of money on some lighter drums. And neutraling, the way these work are different too. 60 works in like a lot of combinations based off of like 2 drums pretty much close together that do it all. And the 80 has all these other drums. You never neutral out an 80. You know, and
it's a clutch apply training.
Yeah, you can't do that. You might kill yourself. A 60, nothing's probably going to happen if you neutral out a 60.
You might freewheel.
Yeah, you might freewheel. You might pop a sprag, but this drum isn't going to shoot out of its case. You know, even if it is one of the fastest spinning drums in the unit.
Yeah, these two right here.
Yeah, Sunshell and reverse input definitely turning a lot more RPM than your engine is engineing for sure at the time.
It's actually a lot more. I forget the ratio, but it's actually up there.
I think it's like triple the speed.
Yeah, it's really high. So what can happen, like on these, is the fingers can expand. You've probably seen that.
Cut into the case.
Yeah, and they'll cut into the case because that's all that's holding it. When it interfaces with the drum, there's nothing capturing it on the outside. If I can get this to drop on.
Yeah, she's a tight one, that one.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go. But that's what we want, good tight fit.
There's nothing capturing these two together, just the fit and the, you know, they're in the case like that. So if this thing tries to blow out because of high RPM, it's going to blow out, and there's nothing here except the case, so it's going to cut it.
And I've seen a lot of RPM. Most of the blowouts I've seen though are RPMs in like low gears.
Yeah, like in first.
Yeah, first gear.
Well, second gear, this would stop. So.
Yeah, but first gear especially. And I actually didn't know it was these for the longest time. I actually thought these were the ones flaring out so bad, and they still do.
Yeah, it's just a little thicker.
Yeah, but
and it's shorter coupled too. I mean, you look at the distance here, and then look at the distance here.
Oh yeah, so, and then when the drum gets squeezed up like an hourglass, I'm sure it flares it up a little bit.
Anyway,
yeah. Well, that's
it's just the properties of the transmission and the gear ratio. What automatic is doing versus what it was intended to do. I mean, in first gear, the band's off and the forward clutch is on, and this is reaction, and this stops in second gear, and then it has to be cut loose for third and fourth. Well, not fourth, but third, and it's applied again in fourth. So,
plus there's no oil that actually goes on that surface either. There's no oil squirter really, not to my knowledge.
I think the orifice in the, we could look. I think there's a bleed in the
third accumulator.
Yeah, here's a band. I think that's what this
hole
is. Yeah, the bleed. If I'm not mistaken, the on the servo side, there's a bleed hole and it's pointed right at this guy, and I think the bleed squirts. It's like a 15,000 orifice, so it probably just pisses a little oil out there. But like what he said, it's not really lube. It's kind of like splash lubrication.
And when this thing grabs too, like I don't care how good you build it, how good your tune is, when you slow things down to like frames per second and stuff, it grabs quick in real life, but it's not really grabbing that fast in automotive.
Well, I know what you're going to say. Go ahead. Yeah, it's like boom.
Yep. Then that's really what, and there's hardly any oil there. And well, how many times you guys hit second gear? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Well, not only that, but 1, 2, and then 3, 4.
Yeah.
This comes on in second and fourth.
And that's a big part of our job and my job is to get more oil to that and more holding power and more volume. Yeah, that's a brand new black one.
Lube doesn't hurt.
Yeah, lube never hurts, but you also, in our job, you can't just pull oil from any. There's several different kinds of oil in the transmission, even though it's just tranny oil, and you can't just pull oil from any old oil. You got to pull enough oil from, a good enough reservoir if you want to make it do something else. Mostly people refer to that as AFL fluid. That's a big fluid. That's a big oil.
Yeah, line would be good. You don't want to take it out of a circuit like 3, 4, because that's, I think, typically a weak link in this whole series, the 4L60 and 4L60E. 3, 4 clutch is the weak link.
Yep. Yeah, 3, 4 clutch. And honestly, even in the 80, it's a toss-up for me between the intermediate and the direct clutch.
Yeah, I'd probably favor direct.
Yeah. Either one, those
in stock form.
In stock form, yeah.
They're like, come on. I had a truck with a 4-lady. I've had 2 trucks with 4 ladies, and they're like,
yeah. You talk about killing. I mean, sure, the training's going to last you forever, but if you want a 0 to 30 foot, it's gone. That's why I'm a 60 guy. I like the ratios. That's me.
Yeah, I'm taking out a Turbo 400 on my kid's C10, and I'm going to put in a 4L60E behind a Chevy 350. We want the overdrive, and we want the steeper first. Like you said, you like the ratios. I don't like the spread, but I like the low.
Yeah, the spread's a little rough, but that's because back then you had to make the IROC feel like it could do something. The hard shift.
The LG Ford 305.
Big drop. Oh. It really changed RPM, didn't it?
Yeah, it was screaming and then fell on its face almost. So.
This is an old one that you might appreciate. Remember this mod?
Oh yeah, the oil grooves. Yeah, I don't know why people did that.
Yeah. I still put them in there just because they don't really do anything. One of the more popular mods from back in the day, in the early days of figuring these things out.
You can't. Well, I don't want to look this up.
This might have it. No.
You could use that to demonstrate.
I threw one away that had it. You can pick it up. Just pop right out. I don't know if we can all see that. There's 3
radial grooves there.
3 cuts in the sun gear, the front sun gear, rear sun gear. But you can do it to the rear too. Old modification. People thought it would provide more lube to the planets that were blowing up left and right, and
it wasn't the planets, it was the metallurgy.
Yeah, it didn't.
It was like, too much power. The power increased, and then GM kept upgrading this unit as the power increased. And I don't think the planets kept up, like the Sprag. How many Sprags are there?
In this, there's
how many different ones? Is like like 6 or
there's
something like
the plastic new one. There's the single cage. There's a weird half-ass single cage that I've found. Then there's a 700 one. There's
a couple 700 ones too.
Yeah, there's I think 6.
I thought there were 6 different ones.
I'm gonna say 6. The plastic one trips me out on the new ones.
It's just the race holder. It just holds the rollers, but yeah.
And we've put it behind some big power just to test, and it works, but I don't understand how. I think there's some flex to it that needs to be there. I don't know. But we like, and I'm sure you like it too. This is a used one. The Borg Warner.
Yeah, that's one I always get.
Cage. This is it, baby.
I think these machined rings with the little.
And these don't really tear into the Sprag too much either. I've seen that on the brass ones where they'll start ripping into it on the inside.
I haven't got there. I haven't built any ones like to the power levels you're making them to.
Yeah, well, this is coming out of cores. You see all the Sprag rings we have over there in that bin?
That's some recycle money.
That's from recycle. That's gonna be meat money next time.
Brass is expensive.
But yeah, one of the best things you can do, dual cage. Kind of the end all be all. I don't believe they make anything better.
I just go with like you. I just always, even in a 700, I'll go on eBay and I'll find like all the 4L60E guts, and I'll change a lot of the 700s over to the newer style 4L60 internals.
Yeah, yeah, same. I've used
starting with the lower reverse piston and where'd it go? Oh, it's under here.
low.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the intermediate, the center support. I changed that. You got to change them in a pair. You can't put one with the older one.
yeah, especially these. These are selective. You know, like we said earlier, this surface right here is the one that either raises or falls. The later ones are all like this. I don't know what.
Yeah, there's only one. I think all 4L60s are the same, but you want to get this lower reverse roller. You can get the output carriers. You can get all the guts out of a 4L60 for the most part, and backwardly compatible. Put them in a 700.
I think I threw them all away. You can't fit a turbo 350 low roller in a 4L60. It won't work. And my general rule for that, I mean, I know everybody should measure shit, but if you're at home doing this, I say a steel thickness when the piston's kind of applying, you know, not too tight, not too loose, but it kind of is what it is down there. You don't have to worry about clearance too much.
In the 4L60E, you can see through the case.
Right through.
I think some 700s you can too. Not the.
It's a lot harder.
Yeah, it's harder.
Their land comes down a little bit more, so you can only really see the wave steel.
That's right.
That's about it.
Yeah, the window's smaller.
Yeah. I do like the window up where the pump is. If you take the filter out, whenever I have a customer with a questionable second gear, slipping maybe, I'm like, yo, take your filter out and shine a flashlight up, you know, where the band goes. And I'm like, is it black? Like, tell me if there's a big line there or not. And
Does it still have material in it?
Yeah, little windows. Unfortunately, it's not like the old Chrysler stuff, like the 727 Torque Fight or anything, where you tighten the bands.
C4, C6, yeah.
Yeah, good times. Tighten the band too much.
Well, they used to say when I was at ASE school, they said that in a C4 and a C6 and a Torque Flight, every downshift was one less upshift.
Yep.
Because it uses the same band, you know, the downshift. And guys, I know in their Mustangs in high school, they would pull their C4s down into low, and you know, and you're like, well, there goes one upshift.
Yeah. and the some of the sprags, the low sprags that you had to build into the case.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
With the roller in the case.
Yeah, those are fun. And that last roller you had to put in just right, and then it would all fall apart.
Yep. Like a manual.
Yep. Yeah, like a manual. The input.
Like a manual transmission.
Ford T5, the input shaft. There.
Oh my god.
All those little needle bearings. Yeah, I did those at
Muncie's.
Muncie
counter shaft.
Awful.
Anyway.
I did those on the side. They were fun. Manual is not my favorite. Automatics.
No. Automatics are way easier, I think.
And they're funner, because manual is all money. Automatic, I might be able to, well, it's like the thing now, you know, some people are making, with the reverse input clutch, some people are using the reverse input clutch now for the third clutch. I would divulge on how to do it, but we need to grasp some other things, you know, in the training world before I do that. But there are people doing it. And that's just one of the cool things you can do with an automatic. You can make stuff that shouldn't work. And it actually might be better. It might be worse. You're not going to know till you blow it up. But that's cars. That's how the boomers figured shit out. They blew it up.
Literally.
Yeah. That's where all my money went. Like, that's why I'm here. Still blowing shit up.
Yep.
I was going to ask you another thing that I actually don't know. And
I may not know either.
Yeah, but that's all right. We talk about it.
It's the real thing.
It's the real thing. Product placement.
Most people, like I was saying earlier, is most people don't realize that automatics, you only do two things. You hold or you turn something. You don't shift gears. I mean, you're going from grabbing this, you know, to applying this to turn, where is it? To turn both of these at the same time. You know, you get third gear that way.
I've heard that. A lot of people, you know, the gears.
You're not like in the manual, how you know the blocking rings go back and forth and you're grabbing a different.
Yeah, no, this is what your shifter's connected to. That's all. There's nothing else. And honestly, all that's happening is the pump is pumping continuous amount of fluid, basically,
and
down into these ports, and this is your gate.
Yeah, it's actually in there quite a bit. I can't do it, but when you pull it down into gear, it
magnet.
Yeah, if I can get a hold of that, it might be about there. It looks like, but when you pull it into drive, it pulls this out. You're just directing oil to different channels to tell the transmission what you want it to do.
Yeah.
That's all that does.
Check balls kind of mitigate flow. Solenoids help with that, on or off. No brain.
Check balls are like a diode. They're like a one-way door.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why if you guys drill your holes, you know, 3/8 of an inch, like the big bad shift kit says, there's no mitigation. There's no door, just wide open.
No, the area, the cross-sectional area goes by the square of the radius. It's not linear. Same thing we were saying about the servo. So, you know, you can calculate it real quick, but if you want to get double the flow, it's not double the radius.
Volume, pressure, surface area,
Yep.
holding power. And it's a really simple formula. It takes, I know it took me a while to kind of fully grasp the concept, but once you do, everything becomes very simple. You know, even though this whole thing is as round as, where the fuck is it? Is basically as round as this, they're two very different creatures, not because it's billet, but because this is actually not a space. It's just a space, actually. It doesn't get used. This is what the fluid's pushing on, and it's very tiny.
So, yeah, that inner ring right there.
Yep.
So if you take like the Corvette one, and you know this is the piston that actually moves. So if you take the Corvette one, you can see that the amount of surface area you have here is much larger. That creates more force on the pin. When the oil is directed between here, this tries to go down, right? This is pinned by the cover, which is like this in the case. This can't move. So this goes down for second gear. So when you increase that area right there, the fluid at any given pressure has more force on that piston. That's all you're doing.
Yeah, that's why, I mean, everybody, I know Corvette, Performance Corvette, but that's really why it's a part that is considered better. And honestly, I don't even know how many there are. I think there's 7
OEM ones.
OEM ones.
Ooh, I think that the smallest being the 4-cylinder, all the way up to there's the couple new ones that came out with the 4L60, 4L60. 65.
Yeah, and then there's like there's like a Trailblazer.
Yeah, Trailblazer. Yeah, you're right. But then the smallest one was the Corvette one.
Yeah, the smallest one.
Smallest factory one.
The Trailblazer SS one, I think, is next performance-wise compared to the Corvette, even though it's actually not that great. It's a little bit better than this one. This one, I think, is the average.
Like the LS truck one.
Yeah, LS truck one here. This is what you guys probably see all the time. At least 99% what's in my stock, probably. Corvette, you guys are going to see these more and more as the years go on, because everybody puts them in, doesn't fuck with the band clearance at all, and blows their perfectly good transmission up.
And not only what Ryan just said, you know, we were talking about clutch plaque clearances before, but the end play, the band, you know, the pin of the band, you're supposed to use a pin gauge to check. You can't just grind that and, you know, spray and pray and hope that you got the right clearance. There's actually a Kentmore tool that you use to check the band length with, which is, I think, very important. I always try to get the nominal band length, and GM only had 3 different band apply pins. And 9 times out of 10, yeah, use the medium one.
Yeah, so there's lines here, and you have 1, 2, and 3 lines. And this is a medium one, 2. Honestly, it works perfect with most wide bands, red bands. I think these are a little bit tighter, personally, than the red bands for some reason. These black Ray Bestos ones.
Yeah, I haven't had much problem with the pin length.
I think they put a little more meat.
Oh, thicker, like yeah, I'm not sure.
When you wrap it around the drum, I usually have to grind my pin a little bit for these ones.
You mean like rubs on here?
No, like shorten it.
Oh yeah,
shorten it up, because I just don't got the stroke. But on the red ones, these 2 pins, 2 lines, they work pretty well. It's almost pretty spot on for the most part. Depends on the batch of bands that year, but for the most part, we've had good luck this year. But you should measure everything. If you don't have fucking dial indicator or something, a good set of feeler gauges would be my advice. Just to guesstimate your 3/4 clutch clearance. You know, I've taught people that way. You just slide them in there. You know, if you're doing it at home, you don't have all the tools.
Yeah, if you don't have a dial indicator and don't want to set this up like a 6-speed or an 8-speed where you have to check it, you have to preload it and then check it.
Yeah.
that's not the way that GM says to check these. I use the angled feeler gauge. I can get in there real easy. The forward clutch I kind of do before I put the sprag in there. But I have all the plates. I have the selective plates, the backing plate for this and the backing plate for the forward clutch. I have a stack of plates on the wall like this, and I'm like, oh, I need one of these, and I put the original one back on there, or run it through a tumble polisher to knock the glaze off of it before I reuse it again. But yeah, I always check the end play on the forward and the direct and the band. That's
the band's a biggie.
Probably the 3/4. I said direct, but I meant 3/4 in the band. Yeah, the band. If it cuts loose too soon before the 3/4 comes on, you're going to get a flare. If it comes on too soon, like if your pin's too tight, or I've seen this backwards. I'm sure you guys have seen them like that. That'll cause the band drag. That could very potentially ruin a transmission. But if the band,
I have actually done this, but you have to be on point with your spacing. Honestly, anymore, servos are so common. If you are building yours, maybe invest in a 4th cap. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think
they never changed really in size. They were always,
that was the same from day one. Yeah, that diameter was always the same.
Only the second, which makes me think, I wonder why they did that. I guess nobody was really doing shit with 4th gear, and it was always disallowed, for watt and everything. But again, GM didn't do this for feeling. You guys want a harder shift or whatever. GM did this for holding power. As the vehicles progressively went, like the Trailblazer that was heavy, they used a different 1-2 servo because it's one of the more critical components that is just
all the time.
All the time.
You want to make it shift harder? Add a spring under here, or drill the 1-2 hole out in the valve body.
Yeah,
it's right in the front,
or
it's all by itself.
The 60, you could adjust your 1-2 accumulator valve. You put a little bit stiffer spring there.
Stiffer spring in the 1-2 accumulator. It's on the bottom.
Yeah, don't go nuts. I mean, it will
sneak up on it.
Yeah, easy. Other transmissions, they work differently. Softer springs are actually a firmer shift, like the 4L80. Honestly, most people with the 4L80, they just leave the spring out entirely.
4L80s are a different animal.
They're a whole different animal. But I think that's why a lot of people struggle to understand this, and why we're still trying to find more out about it, and we still are, because it is a crazy animal. This particular one.
Who would have thought that? I mean, I don't know of any other train that has 3 clutches in a single drum like this.
Exactly. It's weird. The 6L80 kind of, I guess, shares the similarity in how they made it. To me, I describe the 6L as like a 4L80 made out of all the aluminum for a 60 with a 60 pump. That's how I explain it. And the pump is crazy. The same. Same slide vane combo.
Vane pump. But then in the 8-speed, it's offline.
What is your opinion anyway? Do you have a preference between vane versus gear driven pump, like 80 versus 60? I like the vanes personally.
You can. I know where you're probably going to say, but you can, under a low load, GM would back the center off, so you're not pumping all that fluid all the time. You don't need to.
Yeah.
The slide can move over. It has an advantage, but there's more parts in it.
Yep.
So
a lot more.
I mean, you can kick the slide over to one side and for maximum volume when you need it. And I think when these were designed, like the 200, the 200 4R,
the 200,
they always use that same pump. The 700, the 4L60, not the E, 4L60E, also 4L65. I always say 4L60 because there's a couple years when GM designated those as
that was the later model.
Yeah, later model 700s. They switched the nomenclature to 4L60.
Well, yeah, you had all those vacuum switches and shit, and everything, like 4th gear vacuum and weird stuff.
But yeah, you got to remember when they were designed, and you got to remember what they were originally intended to be used for. Trying to squeak like a 200, they were trying to. The horsepower was falling off. GM was trying to they're trying to free up rotational inertia in the transmissions, trying to make it less power robbing because they couldn't get anything more out of the engines.
Yep.
So the 200s came out. Stamped steel, easy to make, lightweight.
And that was a cool one when I was building it because everything's like reverse. So the low piston applies downward.
Yeah, it's a center support, right? It applies down.
And building that son of a bitch with the tool, that'll trip you up.
I think I made one out of an output. I have a yoke, and then I put it on the bottom, and then I can adjust the height and holds the output shaft for me.
Yeah, ours was a piece of angle and a threaded rod. And
yeah, so you can set a nut on it. Yeah.
And what else was that thing? The case. There was a tool to put that super tight fit center support in.
You had to lower it in.
Yeah, God, that was awful.
And I never bought the tool, but it's probably should have in retrospect bought it, but I never did.
I used to super glue the stupid little ring that clamped in there, and it would always fall out, so I just put a little dab of super glue to help keep it in there while I lowered it down. Putting the hook on too tight, squeezing the case.
Yeah,
I've done that a couple times.
Power glides will do that.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird quirks that you run into. They like the 204R with the 7-vein pump.
Yeah.
You know, if you are building a 204R this late, and I think I have one of the only videos on YouTube doing it, a 4L60E pump slide, make sure the slide height's right. You don't want to go too high and lock it down. You don't want to go too low and cause a leak, because they do sell different slides nowadays. 700R4 big boost valve. And
there's very few parts that interchange between the two trannies, but that's one of them. Yeah,
and you got a good pump at that point for a 204R. Not a whole lot going on.
Yeah, anything's better than 7-vein.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the pressure spikes?
And well, yeah, because there's that one real big dead spot.
Yeah, everyone thinks that GM went to like the 13 or the 10 for more volume. God. That's not what does it in the vane pump.
I wish I had one of those still. I don't though.
Last one I did was about 6 months ago, and I just took the pump apart and it went right in the trash.
Yeah, and the difference between 10 and 13, not enough really to matter. We use 13s. It's just something I've done. It's a habit now.
Yeah, the vanes don't determine the volume. The slide determines the volume. Everyone thinks that 13 vanes is higher volume. It's not.
Yeah.
It's when the center support comes off center, that's max volume. When it's in the center, when the transmission is under low load, the center will come over. The outer slide will move over.
And it pivots in there. And so does a 6L. Same deal. It pivots.
8 speed's offline.
Is it?
Yeah, it's got a chain and it's driven offline. It's on the valve body.
That's cool. I haven't even looked into that shit yet. We stopped at the 6L for now. All right, guys. Well, I mean, that was a little bit just showing you some ins and outs and kind of the day-to-day to what we think about and the thought process that goes into us. Maybe some little tidbits you didn't know. You know, like Erik has showed me a lot of insight, and I wish we had more time, because we could just keep going and going and going and going with the amount of shit we've talked about today.
We weren't even earlier. We should have been recording what we were talking about, actually.
Yeah, we had a couple racks of ribs and a real good conversation since literally 8 a.m. this morning, nonstop. So I hope you've enjoyed your time here, bro. Thanks for fucking talking to me.
I had never been to this part of Pennsylvania, and I like it. It reminds me of Michigan.
Oh yeah. Well, please come back. Keep watching. Please subscribe, like. Thank you.
I'll see you later.
That wasn't so bad.